Has the testing been good? Has it been useful?
The first 4-day test was really difficult, and we had quite a lot of issues, and we didn't do very many laps. And then yesterday, which is the first day of the second test, we did almost as many laps yesterday in one day as we had done in the 4 days at Jerez and the 4-day first test here. So
this second session has been a lot more useful.
Hopefully we've turned the corner. Hopefully.
But I would say that. But last time, even though you didn't get that many, laps out of it, you still did a lot of engine development. You still sort of had a lot of kinks to smooth out.
Every single lap that you do, you learn something, and and as I said before, the lights go green in Melbourne at the same time for everyone, and by the time you're there, sat on the grid, you can't sort of think, well, let's just test something else. You've basically, you're in a position where you're going to race what you've got, and these things are so complicated.
Yeah. I can imagine that first race. I can imagine they're all nerve-wracking, but I can imagine that first one is particularly nerve-wracking because once you actually have to do the full race, you're never quite sure what's going to happen.
Yeah, and nobody in testing so far, nobody's even done a race distance. So.
Because what a lot of teams were trying to do was a race simulation, but no one seems to have actually managed to complete one.
Nobody's cheap. Normally, this time last year, everyone would have done one, because the reliability was really very, very strong on all the cars. We had Grand Prix last season where every car finished, and wind the clock back 20 years, that was never the case. And this year, it's going to be a big challenge, but it's such a massive technological change. So,
well, it's good to see it all getting shaken up this season. I think it's going to be quite interesting.
I think what people want to see is that people have a challenge. So
unpredictability.
Red Bull are faced with a challenge. We were faced with a challenge in 2010 when we brought the team in, which is probably equivalent to what Red Bull have been chasing at the moment. We had difficulties and everything. It just goes to show, no matter how big the resource, everything in Formula One is difficult. It's such a difficult game, but then again, it's meant to be. So we'll see how we get on.
Yeah. Well, best of luck.
Yeah. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much for your time. And
no. Thanks for looking after it. Thanks for setting up such a great location for an interview as well.
Like I said, made a couple of calls.